Okay, so good afternoon to all. Today, I want to take you to the intersection of entrepreneurship and law. Some people might find it boring, but it's really essential in any business venture to actually understand what happens there, how decisions should be made, and what are the alternatives. So the topics for the discussion, as you can see on the screen, are basically co-founding dilemmas first. You know, whether to have someone as part of your venture or just do a solo venture. Whether to distribute equity amongst the owners and how to distribute that equity. You know, that's the economic interest in a business, which is very important. Investor dilemmas, whether to bring an investor to the venture or just fund it yourself. Employee compensation dilemmas, how to incentivize your employees through equity, if possible, if at all. And finally, everything that has a beginning must have an end, the exit dilemma. When to exit, how to exit, and for how much. Founder's Dilemma. The term was coined by Harvard professor Noah Wasserman in 2012 in his book, Founder's Dilemmas, Anticipating and Avoiding the Pitfalls That Can Sink a Startup. Highly recommended as a mandatory reading for anyone who wants to go into business, especially entrepreneurship. It refers to those common dilemmas as the ones that we will discuss during this presentation that the founders encounter regarding their business and their idea. Most founders' dilemma we can sum up in two things, right? Whether you get control, you get wealth, or if you're one of the lucky few that actually can achieve both. So you have your business idea. The first question that you may have to ask, right, or consider or ponder is, should I do it alone, or should I bring a co-founder to the venture? It's a very basic thing. Some people just like to do things alone, others like to do it in groups, right? And what does a co-founder bring, or what should we be looking in a co-founder, right? Maybe it's technical expertise, maybe it's a particular skill set that is really needed to take care of the business or to launch the business. Maybe it's past experience, right? Maybe the founder is not very experienced in the particular subject matter or in the particular industry, but he can bring someone else who's an entrepreneur or can help him with the past experience. And at the end of the day, they're hipsters, hustlers, hackers that complement each other and actually make the business more successful, or not. Let's see, at a very high level, advantages and disadvantages of having a co-founder. And some of them are very good, right? Human capital, people who have experience, expertise, technical know-how, relationships, social capital. They have a huge network. Maybe the entrepreneur is a solo. Maybe he's a very technical person who doesn't know anyone. But he can join forces, right, with someone who has a very diverse and deep network of people with a lot of social capital. Or maybe it's just a financial matter, right? The entrepreneur does not have the money, does not have the cash, does not have the equity. So he finds a partner who's not an investor, he's a co-founder, and he brings the money to the venture. Also, there's an issue that I see as a true advantage about collaboration. You have to motivate each other, you have to help each other, you push each other. That seems very simple, very basic, but it's completely essential in making your venture a success. Other advantages, divide and conquer, high responsibility. You have different people doing different things to achieve more, right? The parts some of the parts are more than individual pieces. And better time to market. It's not the same to be alone, doing everything, taking care of every single item that needs to be taken care of in order for the business to get success, or having other people just help you get to the market faster. So those are certainly advantages of having a co-founder, but some people weigh a lot more the disadvantages, like loss of control, bureaucracy, delusion. So you have to strike a balance, right, between the advantages and the disadvantages and make your decision. So this is the first dilemma, whether to have a co-founder or not. Second dilemma, the equity distribution. This is the tough conversation, right? Who gets what? Who will control? What percentage will I have in the business that we're founding? And something that people tend to question themselves or discuss is, I have the idea. I brought the business to you. I should have a premium. I should have more participation than you because I thought of it. Without me, the venture would not exist. The idea premium has been set to be between 5 and 15% depending on the industry. And of course, that can vary totally between jurisdiction and the expectation of the parties and the particular set of facts. But in the higher tech industry, some people tend to say, look, it's going to be on the higher end of the spectrum. It should be closer to 15. Whereby, if it's a lower tech industry, maybe it should be on the lower end of the spectrum, it would be like 5%. But as a general rule of thumb, between 5 and 50% is a reasonable premium for the person who brings the idea. Also, who's contributing assets? Is it an industry that requires capital assets? Who's bringing them to the table? Or is it an industry or a business that requires IP? It requires some intellectual property. Is it a trademark, a copyright, a patent that will allow the business to actually undertake the commercial activity which they have devised? And those things have value. And those contributions are generally remunerated at first with equity, and maybe with a bigger percentage of the equity than the other partners who are not bringing anything to the table. Obviously, effort matters. How much time has each founder invested in the venture before actually distributing the equity? Also, we have to look forward. What will be the responsibility of each of the founders? How much time will they have to dedicate? So when you throw all of that into a blender, out should come something that makes sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, you're going to have a lot of problems going forward. It could be like 3 months after the initiation of the venture, the parties are already having conversations about the inequities of the equity distribution. And then the focus, the effort, and the goodwill all goes in the wrong place, right? Because people are fighting for money, fighting for participation, fighting for recognition. So let's avoid a few things, and this should be a very important takeaway for anyone who's considering starting a venture. Forget about the quick handshake. Okay, let's do it 75-25, without further thinking, without further analysis. That's something that generally happens, so we really have to avoid that. We have to ponder a little bit more about what is happening, as I said in the prior slide, and who's contributing what in order for you to determine the adequate participation in the business. And the equal part distribution is very dangerous. It's 3 of us, 33% each, everyone's happy on day one. Again, down the line, that will bring problems, because someone is going to be contributing maybe 80% of the effort, or someone contributing 90% of the money. And it doesn't make sense going forward for there to be an equal distribution. And again, if we get it wrong at time 0, then we end up with a forced negotiation, which is going to totally deplete the emotional, the gas tank that people have going into a venture, which is very difficult and very complex and very demanding. And you do not want to waste time figuring out what you did wrong on day one, which you could have actually achieved if you had paid a little bit more attention. Some things to consider in connection with the equity contribution distribution dilemmas are whether those percentages are subject to conditions, right? Is there a vesting schedule? Have we agreed that people, to be able to have their equity, they have to stay in the venture? Is it a 3-year straight line vesting? So anyone who lives in year 1, they lose 2/3 of their equity, for example. And that's something that people many times don't think about, but it's a good incentive, right? Because if you leave, you lose your equity, and it's something to consider. And more important than that, and which can be used in conjunction with the time vesting, is the milestones or the conditions or the objectives, right? It's not the same thing just to sit down and be there for 3 years so you can earn your equity. It's very different, right? To be there and actually achieve something, accomplish something, and contribute something of value. So when we talk to our entrepreneurs and we advise them regarding the equities dilemma, it's very important for them to consider both types of vesting schedules. Both a time-barred vesting schedule and basically a milestone vesting schedule. The combination can be very powerful if the parties dedicate the time that they should to determine reasonable objectives. And there could be different types of hybrids, and there's something that's known as a dynamic equity distribution, that through time, the equity can change depending on certain variables. That's more sophisticated, it's more complex, but with the right group of people, it can also be something very positive, because the equity adjusts to the change in circumstances, which are unnatural in any type of venture. Other things to consider regarding the equity distribution are the corporate governance, right? I'm the founder. Should I have a board? I have a seat on the board of directors. Generally, founders want to have a seat on the board of directors, and especially in the earlier rounds, that's something very difficult. When there's an investor, will that founder retain minority rights? Will he retain certain veto rights that he can stop decisions, although he lost general control of the business because the board is controlled by his investors? In Mr. Wasserman's study, he looked at 212 ventures, and 50% of those founders were no longer the CEO after 3 years. And of those that went out, 80% were forced out. So it's very important for that founder to reserve certain rights and to reserve some type of participation in the governance of the business so he can try to influence his long-standing relationship with the business he founded. And also, obviously, the famous golden parachute. If you fire me, it's going to cost you, so it creates a disincentive for firing a CEO or a founder of a business. Sources of capital. Everyone here knows, I'm not going to dwell too much on this particular slide, but it's the co-founders' capital, the alternatives, the friends and family, the angels, bank financing, venture capital, a combination of all of these, right, depending on the particular stage of the business. Well, these are the sources of capital, and it is a dilemma deciding what to do, right? Because a founder can say, look, if I have access to a bank loan, maybe I should not dilute myself. It just makes sense, right? I retain 100% of my business, and I still get the funding. But on the other hand, maybe the revenue is going to come in 2 years, and there's no ability to repay that loan. So let's try to get a friend and family. But if I bring a friend and family, maybe he will not add strategy or contacts or social capital because he's just giving me the money because I'm his family member. So it's one of the dilemmas that the founders have to really get their arms around. Very quickly, friends and family, as you all know, is the easiest money. Typically, no due diligence is done. I've never seen a father, a grandmother, an uncle, or a niece doing due diligence on the startup of his family member. Maybe some do, but it will be very distasteful. Generally, these friends and families do not participate in further rounds because they have limited amount of funds and they're not professional investors. And again, as I said, the friends and family generally don't provide a lot of human capital or social capital to the venture. Basically, they just provide the money and support to the family member. And honestly, we have to be very careful. Money can ruin a relationship, particularly a family relationship, so it's better to have things very clear with the family member regarding the expectations and that they could lose all of their money. Angel investors, they basically invest in early stage, as you know. They make smaller investors than professional institutional investors, and they serve as a bridge, right, between the friends and family and the institutional investors. And they expect a high return because they're coming into the venture in a very early stage, so they have a higher risk, and in turn they expect a higher return on their money. And they do become mentors in many cases until the VCs arrive and maybe a more formal board is established. But they do can provide a lot, they do and frequently provide a lot of insight, a lot of contacts, and a lot of experiences, right? Because many angel investors have been entrepreneurs in the past, they were successful, and they want to pay it forward, right? There's certain interest in helping the ecosystem and helping the startups. The venture capitalists, they, as you know, invest other people's money. They invest larger amount of capitals. These are the institutionals, right? They need and require that a formal board be constituted. And they generally demand to be on that board. Many of them demand to control the board, right? But at the very least, they want to have a seat on the board of directors, to know what's going on, to influence the decisions, and to provide expertise and mentoring, right? Because they are professional investors. And they also bring other investors to the table. Money follows money, and of course, they're going to dilute the founders, and they will try to diminish the founders' control as much as they can. And if you allow them, they will leave the founders with no control. So, the next dilemma, employees. How do we incentivize employees? Is it just cash? Is it just, you know, on medical insurance, or are we going to give them part of the business? Are we going to give them equity so they feel as owners, right? And they keep participating in the venture on the longer term. Going into a little bit of legalese, right? There are 4 types of equity incentives. The first one, phantom equity. It's not equity. It's called phantom equity, but it's not equity. It's basically cash, right? I'll give you what you would have received as a dividend if you had 10% of the business, but it's a check. It's not really equity. The second is a restricted equity grant. What that means is that the business gives equity to the employee, but it has restrictions. The employee cannot sell the equity, the employee may not have any vote, the employee cannot participate in the governance. It's very passive. Then there's a straight equity grant. Simply, you're so important to the business that you get the equity, you own the equity, you receive the dividends, and you participate in the governance. And finally, the employee stock options, which are not really equity, it's just the opportunity to buy equity in the future at a predetermined price. So that's the landscape of employee incentive dilemmas. Advantages and disadvantages, very quickly. With the phantom equity, the owners, the founders, they retain control, right? They did not give equity out, so the business is still 100% theirs. But when paid, it's taxable for the employee as ordinary income. So the employee gets a bigger bite regarding taxes than he would if he actually had some equity. But at the same time, the employee is happy because he got some cash. Restricted equity, the employee starts to develop the ownership mentality. He feels part of the business. But again, there's various types of restrictions that will apply to that type of grant. And it's very efficient at the same time because due to the restrictions, it may not be taxable on the employee. So he did receive the equity, but not necessarily will get taxed on it. The straight equity, the employee has all the benefits as any other owner, so he feels like an owner, he acts like an owner, and he receives the benefits of the owner. But the straight equity is very dangerous for the employee because it could be fully taxable at the time of grant. What does that mean? You get a piece of paper, and the IRS or the Puerto Rico Treasury says, since you got that for free, I'm going to tax you on a 33% basis, although you have no liquidity. You did not get the check that the phantom guy got. You just got a piece of paper, or you're going to pay me full tax as if you had received the cash. So it's good because you're really an owner and you have all the benefits of the owner, but you have to pay Treasury for that. And the employee stock options are very interesting. It's for more mature businesses, for bigger businesses, and they basically, again, give the employee the opportunity to buy shares at a predetermined price, and they can be structured in a way that they're very tax efficient. So what does that mean? That the employee doesn't get taxed at the time of grant, and he doesn't get taxed at the time of exercise. He just gets taxed when he actually sells the stock, right? And he gets the cash. Other founding dilemmas, and these are more general exoteric, is there a true alignment on the overall goal and vision of the business? This is very soft, but extremely important because vision will keep people together, especially if they share the same vision. Is the equity transferable? Can the owner exit, basically, because he wants to exit without giving anyone else the right to purchase a participation on a priority basis that could add or lessen the value of the actual equity? How will the sale of the business be decided, right? This is basically the exit dilemma. Can one investor decide to sell the entire business, or is it the majority of the owners who have to make that decision? Or again, is it a super majority of the owners with the veto right of X or Y investor? That needs to be understood at time zero, because that could diminish the influence that the founder has and would certainly diminish the liquidity that the founder achieves, not to mention the timing of that liquidity. And what happens if a founder is leaves, or is terminated from the business? Can the business purchase the participation of the founder? At what valuation can that participation be purchased? These are extremely important matters for a founder and an investor, and they both may be completely at odds regarding what is good for each of them. So at the end of the day, high overarching principle, avoid destroying value. It's very easy to destroy value in these ventures, and it can happen very early on. And again, from a lawyer's perspective, get your shareholders agreement, get your operating agreement in place, dedicate a few weeks to this, because at the end of the day, it's going to impact both your wealth, your control, or the combination thereof. And many people don't dedicate that time, the time to that type of endeavor. The exit. Continuing with the exit. When is the appropriate time to exit, to sell the business, right? There's different perspectives for an investor, for a founder, for a three-time founder versus a first-time founder. Is it a company that can achieve liquidity through an IPO, or will they have to sell the business, or will the founder achieve liquidity selling to the same investor, or the company repurchasing their participation back? Very important considerations regarding the liquidity that the founder can achieve. Will it become a lifestyle business? Some founders may say, look, I'm making $1 million a year. Yeah, this is great. I really do not want to exit. And it may be that at time zero, he did not pay too much attention to what he was negotiating, and the investor can drag him along and force him to sell. And what something that he thought could have been a lifestyle business, and he was very happy with it, it gets sold and he loses that income stream, although he gets also a higher stake of liquidity. The founders typically do not retain veto rights to block a sale once institutional investors come in. And they have to be very careful with the drag-alongs in favor of investors. As I said, some investors want the right to force the founder to sell and exit the business. Liquidation preferences are basically when things go wrong, who gets the little value that may be left in the venture. though investors typically say, my money comes out first. You're the founder, you're left with the carcass or whatever assets may be left at the end. In sum, and this is your takeaway, all decisions by a founder will be influenced by whether the founder values more wealth or control, right? And a very simple way of saying this is that control-centric decisions can lead to a king, right? Who owns a less valuable kingdom. He's king, he rules, but it's a business that was not too successful. Maybe some wealth-centric founders will have less control, but could end up with a more valuable kingdom, who end up with a venture that's worth more. And there's a few of them, right, that will achieve both. They will achieve substantial control throughout time. It may be diminishing, but they will achieve some control, and they will be able to maximize the wealth that they actually generate through the venture at a time that makes sense for them. And this is what happens in 90% of the time, right? You're left alone in a burning room, you have all the control, you made all the decisions, but basically your venture is worthless. I don't want to end up on a sour note, but if anyone has any questions.
Preguntas. Pero usted está demasiado callado.